Hello everyone, thank you for joining us. So if you haven't already heard, this month is LGBT History Month and the theme is Mind, Body and Spirit. So today our discussion is going to be centered around spirit and spirituality. Of course, by practicing spirituality, you're also going to be helping your mind and your body. So regardless of your previous knowledge, we hope that today brings you a deeper understanding of spirituality and some inspiration about how you can bring this practice into your everyday life. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce our panel this evening. So next to me on the right is Lisa. She's our CEO of Pride in Surrey, mum of 4, and early practitioner, I think, of young education. And then below me on the left is Laura. And Laura works at the Woking Twister Project and does some other work with young people for Surrey County Council and Youth Services. And in the bottom right, I've got Abi and she's a Brazilian singer-songwriter and 2 little kids. And she's a fantastic ally for the LGBT community and Pride in Surrey. So welcome to you all. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here.
Awesome, what a beautiful theme. So I think Lisa's going to just introduce spirituality for us.
That's a huge task to introduce spirituality because it's such a broad concept, and it needs to be because it's a really personal thing, to every individual. So, but I did find something which was quite aptly named. It was a paper written by Dr. Maya Spencer from the Royal College of Psychiatry. And the title of the paper was, "What is Spirituality? A Personal Exploration." And I think that's really the key to all of this. It's such a personal journey. But anyway, she says, spirituality involves the recognition of a feeling or sense or belief that there is something greater than myself, something more to being human than sensory experience, and that the greater whole of which we are part is cosmic or divine in nature. Spirituality means knowing that our lives have significance in a context beyond a mundane everyday existence at the level of biological needs that drive selfishness and aggression. It means knowing that we are a significant part of a purposeful unfolding of life in our universe.
That's beautiful. It's like you say, it's really hard to kind of put it together in sort of one sort of sentence or paragraph, isn't it? Because it's different for everybody.
Absolutely is. Absolutely is.
Shall we start with Laura? How maybe describe a little bit about your journey into spirituality and kind of how it affects you?
Oh, that's quite a big one, really. Big question. So I guess growing up, so my mum was a landscape gardener. And my dad was into philosophy, and they're both quite environmental. And I think that definitely influenced my sort of nature-based spirituality, always being aware of those sorts of things. I was about 12 when I discovered paganism, and I was struggling a lot with my physical health and my mental health and life and everything, really. And it gave me more purpose and meaning and a way of changing my life and taking control of things for myself.
That's really important. I feel like that theme, no matter whatever path or journey you take, it's about taking that control and something that works for you.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I follow my intuition a lot. That's definitely something that I'm into. And
amazing.
I recommend that for everyone, following what's right for them.
That good instinct thing, isn't it? I always say that to so many people, follow your gut, listen to what your body is telling you. And it's never failed me. My instinct has never failed me. You just have to allow yourself to hear it, don't you?
And then on a topic that you said about control, Molly, I think I would argue quite against that. It's almost a sense of letting it be and giving into it, because that is it. Once you try to have control over things, it becomes a lot more difficult, because ultimately we have no control over most things. And so when you let that happen, suddenly it flows. And that is it. I think it's also a matter of perspective, because you can look at it as something being the unknown, because it's a lot about that. It's what you have no idea. But you can look at that in two ways. You can see that as absolutely terrifying, or you can see that as endless possibilities. And so how you look at it is up to you. But when you allow yourself to let go and to look at it as endless possibilities, suddenly everything changes. And I think that's the biggest part of spirituality for me.
Endless opportunities, isn't there, and possibilities. And actually maybe paths that, if you were in control, things that you could decide, like careers and things, actually you kind of shutting yourself down to other possibilities that actually might fit you better.
That's it. And I think in life, if you look at moments that you have thought you knew what you wanted, or you knew where you were going, and suddenly something completely unexpected and unusual happened. And initially you thought it was the end of it, and you thought, this is tragic, this is terrible. But that took you somewhere else. And later on you figured out that was the best thing that could possibly have happened to you. And that is it. Bigger changes in life take you to paths that you never thought, and they were in the end the best ones for you.
It's really interesting, that sort of the idea of we talk about like manifestation, like yeah, making something happen in the world, versus like going with the flow, going with how things work out. It's definitely a debate in like paganism as well. And there are some people who are very much into making things happen the way they want things to happen, or trying to, versus like, yeah.
You know what I find interesting, that point is, you always, I think there's also a big sense of purpose for all of us. And when we find our purpose, we then find a way to get to it. So when you say, yes, I can guide, or I can find my path and find my objective. But the difference is, it's wonderful to have that, to have a focus, to have a purpose, and to create possibilities to achieve an ideal or to achieve an objective. But the magic of it is that you don't know how you're going to get there. And this is what I find that excites me in life. Because I know these days, I know much better who I am, and I know what I want out of life, and I have dreams and I want to achieve them all, but I don't quite know how. I just follow that instinct. And so when Lisa said, that's it, you follow your gut, you trust your gut, because that is this energy that you are able to sense and not often pinpoint what it is, but you just know, and that guides you through. So I think it's a mixture of both, of what you really want and of what you don't know, but you trust it is going to happen.
Things around you, I guess, as well. It kind of, your journey can really change as your life changes, and every experience we have, whether we kind of went out and got it or whether it just was thrown upon us, kind of changes the way we then want to connect and feel and kind of move forward, I guess.
I think you're right, Molly. And I think, you know, I think just being open to possibilities, and that this is where the connectedness comes from, doesn't it? You know, being open to things that might cross your path, and trying to have a greater awareness of what comes your way. And I can't really describe it any better than that, really. But you know, it is a bit about opportunity. It is about sort of finding signs and signals, and you know, and allowing that good instinct to be influenced by those things. You know, I don't know. I'm perhaps not explaining it very well.
I think it's quite a difficult one to explain because it's such a personal kind of feeling, I suppose, and because it's different for everyone, and it's almost, it's like something that seems to like almost flood over you, and it's quite hard to actually describe how that feels sometimes.
And that whole thing of letting go of the control, I found that as a young person, I found that really, really difficult, to the point where it did affect my mental health. And I suffered really badly with stress and anxiety, and you know, I really, really struggled with that. And it's still a thing that I have to battle still every day. I do have a need to control lots of things in my life, and I have to really work hard to let that go. But when I do let it go, when I'm successful in that, great things happen, you know. But it is just about it's like a discipline within ourselves, to just let go and feel and sense what's around us.
It is an incredibly difficult thing to do. It sounds so simplistic, but it is so hard, because I think, you know, every day, if you think about it, you have hundreds of things that you have to focus on and that you need to fulfill and you need to do. So your mind, you wake up, I don't know you girls, but I wake up in the morning with like 100 thoughts in my head. And if I let them take over, I just can't function. I start my day feeling petrified because there's so much to handle. And we are all immersed in this now, especially now, because it's like our own bubble world of problems, as well as a whole world sharing a similar trouble. So what I find is that if you try and find stillness in the middle of the chaos, somehow that just brings your whole awareness of life a little bit calm. It calms it down, and it won't resolve any problem, but will certainly help you deal with it better. And it's such a hard thing to do. Lately, I'm finding that to meditate is one thing that I love to do, but halfway through, I started to think of the food I need to cook and the bills I need to pay. And I go, no, forget about it. I just need to think of nothing. And it's so hard. But it does help, you know, it's just finding that quiet moment. And sometimes for some people, it's not, you know, stillness, it is a torture. Some people need the noise. So find something that calms you down, maybe nature, maybe movement. You don't have to sit still, but you have to quiet your mind in the best possible way. But it is a hard
grounding, isn't it?
It is. And then suddenly everything else, you know, that surrounds you becomes bearable again. And then it's a reset of sensation, I would call it. And then you can carry on. But it is a hard thing to do. And I think the more you do it, the better you become at it. And it doesn't need to be, you know, sometimes I hear all these people going, oh, I spend 2 hours meditating. And I think it's fascinating. But I personally would find it very hard to do. And I am a very calm human being. It's nothing to do with that. My mind is 100 miles an hour. My body is calm, but my mind is elsewhere. So I need to find that peace inside. And maybe 5-10 minutes makes a difference. You know, you don't have to be full on with it. But if you do, it's like exercise. a little bit every day rather than a lot once a week. It's the same with calming your brain. You know, a little bit every day will make a difference.
That's how I feel as well. Where I practice yoga, and actually I've been doing a 10-minute kind of wake up in the morning because I found it easier to fit into my schedule, because I love it so much, but even a half-hour class is sometimes too much to fit in. And rather than only doing it once a week or not even managing it in the week, just 10 minutes as soon as I wake up. And actually I find that that's enough to just clear my thoughts and just be at peace for 10 minutes, because it's actually really hard when you're laying there or you're doing an exercise. Your mind starts drifting, like you say, to everything you have to do in the day, and it's just going to emails and bills and things I've need to get done. And actually 10 minutes is really works for me, because it doesn't eat into my day, but it just sets me up with that intention of how I want the day to be.
The thing that you both mentioned, the mind wandering, and then it's actually the moment where you sort of bring yourself back into the moment. That's sort of like the important part. It doesn't matter that your mind wanders. That's like totally natural. But when they've done like brain scans on monks and stuff, like, yeah, it's that part where you just bring yourself back. That's the key.
I'm so glad it doesn't matter, because that happens to me all the time. I'm rubbish at meditating. I can't do it. I really can't do it. I can't. My sort of, I suppose if I'm having one of those days and I need to find my grounding moment, I get in the shower, and just the water and the peace in the bathroom when I'm usually not interrupted. That's my grounding. But typical meditation, I can't. Well, I've felt that I can't do that, but if it's okay if my mind wanders, then maybe I can. Maybe I need to practice it more.
There's so many ways on that to do things. I think sometimes it's just this misconception that meditating is sitting there and try to find peace and try to calm yourself down. But we are also different, and there's so many ways of calming ourselves down. And sometimes it's with movement, and sometimes it's with sound. I mean, sound for me is like a major thing in my life, and music can guide me through a lot of things. It really helps me. And when you said a shower, for me, it's a very similar at night. Doesn't matter if I had 3 showers, if I don't have a shower before I go to bed, and just close my eyes and let that happen, because that time I know not my cat, not my kids, nobody will call me, because I put my phone on like silence. No one can disturb my shower, and I can just hear the water, and that is wonderful. So yes, there are different ways, even walking. When you go for a walk and you just notice nature, you're absorbing that goodness around you, and that awareness and being in the moment. That is it. That will help you, not just sitting there and meditating. That works for a lot of people, but not for everybody.
I totally agree with the being in the moment. Quite often, if I'm out gardening, and I was along next to a row of oak trees a few weeks ago, and there was just the strongest bird song. It was so loud and clear. It was like everything else just melted away, and there was one bird, and I just didn't know what it was, but it was so clear, and it was like it was right in front of me, just kind of calling me. And I just stood there and closed my eyes and listened to it singing. And then I did get my app out on my phone to identify which bird it was, because it's always really interesting.
What was it?
It was a nuthatch.
Oh, yes.
And it wasn't the noise I expected at all. I don't think I'd ever heard a nuthatch sing, but it was just how I was sort of kind of by like a semi-busy road, but everything just seemed to melt away for just that couple of minutes. And there must have been 2, because they were calling backwards and forwards to each other. It is like it just wanted me to stand still and just absorb nature for a couple of minutes.
Perfect.
So you can be outside. It doesn't need to be in your living room, or you can be anywhere, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think we're all sort of talking about very mindful experiences. and experiences that bring us into the present. There's so many ways of doing that. Like one of you mentioned, yes, in nature and like walking, you can do walking meditations. That's why people do like pilgrimages and stuff. Yeah, there's so many ways.
That's true. And it's about, yeah, just finding your own journey, I suppose, isn't it? Like we said before, being open to all those ideas. Well, it's fascinating. Some really things I hadn't thought about doing before as well, which is really good to talk about.
Talking about nature, would you like to hear one of my quotes?
Yes,
It's
definitely.
a bit of a nature theme. So this is from Khalil Gibran from his book The Prophet, which I think is absolutely fantastic. And he says in the book, and forget not that the earth delights to feel your bare feet and the winds long to play with your hair. I just love that. I just love that line.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, it's that engagement, isn't it, with the earth? You know, I just think that is a really important thing.
Yeah, when we're so busy, we can kind of get swept away in literally just working all day and actually just taking that time to get back to our roots, I suppose.
I find that I mean, everybody has a different belief and a different way of engaging with that. But even with people, you know, I've got friends who don't believe in anything, but they do. They believe in nature. You know, that is something that they can see and they can feel, and that is a good starting point, because I find that it's so precious and it's so magical what nature can give us and what we have around us. That is divine, you know. And if we can connect with that, you're connecting with something greater than yourself already. So I like to, you know, when I talk to people, I like to say, you know, that you call it whatever you like, God, the universe, nature, Mother Nature. It is something that is greater than you. And once I wrote a sentence that said, I am a drop in the ocean, yet I am the ocean. And this is what we are. We are so insignificant, and yet we are so important too. You know, as a whole, we are one, if you think about it. But, you know, as well as that, we are in our own life, living our own lives, creating our own environment. But we are part of something great. And when you realize that, suddenly you become more purposeful, life becomes more meaningful, and things become, you know, more important, because it's not about your world, it's about everybody's world, and you're part of it.
You're totally right. It's like we're all a little piece of a jigsaw, and together we make the whole picture. And actually we kind of need everybody else around us to actually help us to flourish. Like, I think, is there no man is an island, or no woman, I should say. Definitely flourish alongside each other. That's beautiful.
There's a few things that came to my mind as you were talking about that. In Druidry in particular, which is a sort of like Celtic spirituality that's like pagan, we take a breath and think of the earth beneath us and let it go. Take a breath and think of the sky above us and let it go. We take a breath and we think about the sea surrounding us and let it go. It's very much connecting to the earth. And there's another thing we do of when we are acknowledging the directions, north, south, east, and west, we think about spreading love throughout the world in those directions. You really visualize it. And the final thing that I thought of that we do is at group rituals, there's a saying, there's a Wiccan saying, but many pagans use it. We swear by peace and love to stand, heart to heart and hand in hand. Marco Spirit and hear us now, confirming this, our sacred vow. It's repeated 3 times while you're in a circle with everyone you're with. Yeah, very connected sort of rituals.
I feel very
That's
connected.
incredible. You know, if there's a bigger group, I imagine that's quite a moment.
Definitely.
Even just listening to you say it there. Sorry, I interrupted. Carry on.
Yeah, I was going to say one of my favourite places to go is Avebury Henge. It's a really big stone circle in Wiltshire. And yeah, there's often group rituals there, and you, especially in the summer, you get more people. Have a very big circle.
That's nice. Sort of everyone coming together with kind of a mutual interest, even people that just don't even know each other.
Yeah.
Therefore.
And you're getting random people who will join. They didn't even know what was happening, and they'll just join in, and it's lovely.
It's beautiful. Links back to Abi saying to kind of open your heart and your mind and let like the path just take you, and actually fall across something like that, and why not have a go and see where it takes you. Fantastic. Thank you for sharing so many of your stories and thoughts this evening.
Welcome. And you know, another thing I was going to say, following this very conversation now, is the fact that, you know, we are ultimately just energy. You know, everything you look and see and touch is some sort of energy. And somehow it's how you connect with it. You know, there are levels of frequency and there are ways of doing that. But we are, you know, sometimes we know how to do it, sometimes we don't. But what I find very powerful is that when you intend to send something to somebody, that energy, that love, that good feeling, that good vibe, that somehow reaches people no matter where they are. They can be here, they can be across the ocean, and it reaches them in some shape or form, you know, because there is a greater connection than us. And if we get into that frequency, even if it's for a second, that is something already. So, you know, trust that power that you have. Sometimes, you know, I sit down and I think of everybody I love and everybody I don't, because I think they're the ones, you know, that might need more of my love than anybody. And I just send that good energy, because after all, that comes back to me as well. So send that off, send that good positive energy and wish well to everyone. Even when it's hard to do it, sometimes you just want to slap people, but you can be, you know, take a higher ground and just think, you know, I'm going to send you something good, something positive here. And often, you know, my family is across the ocean, and often I would just get this most unusual phone call saying, I just thought of you. And I had just literally thought of them. And how do you explain that? It can't be a coincidence all the time. You know, I truly believe in this energy that is greater than us, with people who are here and people who are not here. You know, my mom, some of you know, my mom passed away recently, but she was a very, very spiritual person. And I remember when I was trying to figure things out, you know, the first time I went back to Brazil after she passed away. And the first thing I opened was this drawer out of nowhere, because I just went there and opened it. And it was a book that she gave me. And inside it was written, this is my gift for you, and I'll be with you wherever I am. How can that be?
Yeah,
it's beautiful.
That is, oh, Abi, that is beyond, isn't it? You know, that's a whole, oh, that's made me go tingling. It's a beautiful story.
And
You
it's
know,
nice even when you're so far away.
when you connect, you know, and it happens to all of us. Something really beautiful happened to my youngest son. He was looking for this trump cards that he couldn't find for months. And then he found that the other day. He didn't tell me though. He just sat by the bed and I thought, what's wrong with you? And he said, well, mommy, some days are good, some days are bad. I said, yeah, I know that, but you look sad. And I gave him a hug and I said, and he cried. And then after a while, he said, I think I know what triggered it. He's only 10. And I said, okay, well, would you like to share that with me? And he said, yes. And he went there and got the trump cards. And they were the trump cards that he couldn't find for months. And he said, these are the ones I played with grandma all the time when she was with me. And I said to him, listen, this is wonderful. This is her saying hi to you and saying she's here. So isn't that a beautiful thing? She's with us in some shape or form. She appears in our dreams. She sends us messages through things that she left for us. So it's amazing. You know, when I think of moments like this, they are incredibly powerful because they remind me that life, at least for me, is way beyond what I see. It's what I feel and what is around me, and it's what stays with me. You know, she was the most important person of my life, and yet I feel her presence. And if I think life is just this, it's so small, it's so little. You know, I can't imagine life being just this. So I think it gives you also this sense of continuity. You know, she lives in me and she lives around me and she will always be like this. And we live, you know, in everybody else's hearts and people we touch and people we see, people we bring into this world. Isn't that a beautiful thing? We are all connected in some shape or form, you know, some more than others. But regardless, there is a connection. And when you find that and you realize that, life becomes a much better, more meaningful, you know, thing.
Definitely. Could listen to you speaking about the connection with your mom for ages. I know those that do or don't know, my other half, Yana, her mum also lives further away. And though she's never been here, I feel like she's all around. And actually, we have a plant on the side, and it is the only plant that will survive in the house. And it came from Yana's mum, and it was one leaf. And she gave it to me because I'm a gardener, and she thought I could look after house plants. She didn't know that I kill every house plant. And this plant has just flourished beyond belief, and it's huge. And I do feel like a part of Yana's mum is the plant. You know, when I do things, I'm sure she's in the plant. She's moving. She talks to me. I talk to her. I clean her leaves. It's the most nourished, looked after plant going. But it makes me happy because I feel like I'm connected to her even when I can't speak to her.
We talk about the web of life. That's what really reminded me, like when you're talking about all of those sorts of things. And yeah, the idea of like, if something was someone's possession, it has their energy on them. Like, yeah, very like non-physical aspects to life.
Definitely.
So I often find that, I mean, in my particular experience with my mom, when I went back to Brazil after she passed away, there's a whole life, her life there. And my auntie looked at me and said, what are you going to take? Are you going to take her clothes, her dresses, the beautiful things she left? I said, no, I'm taking a stone and a frog. And those are the two tiny things that she had next to her bed. Is a frog made out of a stone and a stone that's made of nothing. It's just a little stone. And I brought that and gave to each of my boys. And they have that next to their bed. And every time they miss her, I notice them touching that, and they take this everywhere with them, especially if they miss her, if they're feeling that, they need something to hold on to. And that is a little bit of what she, something that reminds them of her. Rather than having a picture, they wanted to keep the stone. And Lucas said to me, my youngest, when he saw it, it's like a dark stone. And he said, Mommy, isn't that beautiful? It's almost a heart shape. I hadn't even noticed that. It's like grandma's heart is next to me. I was like, yeah, that's beautiful. And Kyle had the other one, which is this little frog, this purple frog. And everywhere I look, wherever he is, the frog is somewhere near him. He doesn't talk much, but he feels, everything. It's lovely. I think we do put some, we do transfer some of our energy into things, and they can be felt as well. So yes, I agree with you on that. The web of life makes a lot of sense.
Oh, now because it is LGBT History Month, I think, did we have a few people that had inspired us that we might like to talk about as well while we're here? Who wants to go first? Maybe Abi?
Yes, I'll go first. Okay, so I thought of two people. You see, my life is very influenced by my roots, where I grew up and I was born in Brazil. But most of my life I have lived in the UK. So I feel very much part of this culture. It's almost as if I belong to different parts. And, I belong to nothing at all, but to everything. And so I love to get a bit of both cultures wherever I can and try to blend them. But I thought of two people. Stephen Fry is somebody I admire a lot as an actor, as a writer, as a comedian. I mean, the guy is so knowledgeable and he's got a very interesting outlook in life. And he had gone through so much as a young man. And I thought, he's an inspiration in many ways. So, and I didn't know, you see, when I came to England, I just, I heard of him, I was listening to him, learning English, listening to him. And I just thought, what an incredible man. And then afterwards, I realized, I found out more about his life. And then that he came out and that he was part of the LGBT community. And so I think he's a really good person to represent a lot of the struggles and also the successes that you can have being an LGBT, part of the LGBT community. And back in Brazil, there is a singer called Lulu Santos, and these days he's like one of those judges for The Voice in Brazil.
Okay.
But he's been going on for 40 years. The guy is like forever there. Since I was a little girl, I remember singing his songs. And he writes beautifully. And he was, he wasn't openly gay. He married a woman, and then he assumed that actually I like men and that's who I want to be with. And he had, he got married to the love of his life, and there's this lovely man. And in Brazil, people are quite, there's a lot of prejudice still. There's a lot of racism. There's a lot of things there that you wouldn't imagine in such a colorful country that you would see that. But it is, there's a lot of traditions that they don't break, and they are afraid of the unknown. And for a person to have that visibility and bring the visibility in such a way that is accepted, it's wonderful. And he does that job beautifully, because he does that through his art, and he doesn't offend people. He doesn't try and throw that in their faces, but he tries to bring them towards that and show that it doesn't matter, that love is love. And so I'm a big fan of him.
He sounds very inspirational, especially if he's been going for 40 years. I imagine he's seen a lot of changes in Brazil over that amount of time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. Laura?
So my inspiration is Aleister Crowley. He was alive in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and he was bisexual. He was quite like a privileged white man from like England, so like luckily he could be quite outrageous and open about it. He wrote poetry. He was into like witchcraft, ritual magic, and that sort of thing. Created his own tradition. So has been quite a big influence on like modern paganism. Yeah, and he really advocated for everyone to be able to love who they love. Yeah.
That's really nice. Thank you. I'd never heard of him, so it's really interesting to learn about somebody else new. Fantastic. Lisa, did you want to share somebody?
Yes, I can. Kel and I had towards the end of last year, had the great privilege of interviewing Peter Tatchell, who is now in his late 60s, but it was his birthday the other week actually. But he has been an LGBT and human rights activist since he was 17, and he's dedicated his entire life to fighting for equality and fighting for our community and other marginalized communities as well. He's just such a, I can't describe what it was like to speak with him. He's just such a driven man. He's got this incredible calmness about him, and his struggle has been such a great one. I mean, he placed himself in so many very dangerous situations and suffered great injury in when he's been fighting against various regimes across the world. He's an incredible human being, and he's driven by love for others. And I think he's just an incredible man, just a really, really brilliant man. And if you are tuned into our social media, you'll see that this month we've got some daily snapshots through history, and he actually features in quite a lot because he was an integral man in securing our rights here. He was integral in overturning Section 28, and all of that was because he just loved his fellow human beings. And I think in terms of spirituality, for me anyway, it is entirely about loving yourself and loving other people and loving the world. And one of the quotes that I picked out on love, well, it's about compassion really, which is similar, if not the same really. And it's from the Dalai Lama, and he said, if you want others to be happy, practice compassion. And if you want to be happy, practice compassion. And I just think that that's a really powerful statement. And if we can love one another the way Peter Tatchell has loved the world, then we'll all be doing really well.
You're absolutely right. I listened to your interview with him, and he's just, for what he's achieved and what he's gone through to achieve that for everybody else, such a calming, peaceful person to listen to. It's absolutely inspiring. Yeah, that's a really nice
hard. Now at the age that he's at, he's just still really, really working very hard. And I think the day that we interviewed him, we had to reschedule it. We were supposed to be the day before, and he had to reschedule because he had an urgent case landed on his desk, and if somebody was about to be deported, and he just drops his whole life to help other people. It's just a phenomenal man.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, I did have one to add to the list, but I'm not sure she quite follows Peter Tatchell, but still inspirational. And I'm sure everyone will have heard of her, Dame Ethel Smythe. And actually, not sure actually if she came from Woking, but she definitely lived in Woking for a large part of her life. And I saw a production of her life at the theatre a couple of years ago, and it was just moving to see kind of how she stood up and fought for women's rights at a time when it was just impossibly hard, and what so many of those women went through so that we could have a vote and so we could have some of the freedoms that we have today. And I think especially it's so important to teach our next generation actually what people have gone through, and that actually things like the vote that, you know, are kind of taken for granted even by a lot of, not even just the youngsters now, but kind of even my generation don't quite appreciate how valuable that is. So I think people like her should really be remembered, definitely. So this is definitely an inspiration to me, and listening to some of the music that she composed and sang and wrote was just beautiful evening at the theatre.
I think we are actually going to do a short programme about her, so watch out for that through February as well.
Fantastic. And she was a keen tennis player, so I think that's why she's always, yes, exactly, yeah. It's fascinating. Thank you so much for joining me this evening.
It's been
Thank
lovely.
you for having us.
It's been an absolute pleasure. I think I don't know whether I can do it justice to summarize everything, but I think if you can take anything from this evening, maybe to open yourself up. I think that seems to be the most important message coming from all of you. It's not to force anything, and to let things develop and grow, and let life lead you the way it leads you. And actually, if you can try and put some kind of structure into your day if that helps you, and whether that's taking 5 or 10 minutes to do some kind of mindfulness or a yoga or meditation. But what I've really learned this evening, which I think I already knew about myself, is that it doesn't have to be a quiet time to actually connect. It can be a loud time, it can be music blaring, it can be birds singing or animals screaming, or it's finding something that works for you, isn't it?
Absolutely.
I think that's the key message, is allow yourself to find something that works perfectly for you. So thank you very much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.
We'll see you again. Perfect. Right. We'll see you very, very soon. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye, girls.
Bye.